She faked being his girlfriend to escape an arranged marriage. But the millionaire fell for her hard hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our story. Maria had always been a quiet, reserved woman, especially in situations like this. She had agreed to pretend to be her friend's girlfriend to escape an arranged marriage, but she never imagined how much it would change her life. Sitting at a small cafe in the corner of the room, she tried to calm her nerves, adjusting her jacket and running her fingers through her hair. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would show up for the blind date, even if it was just to keep up the pretense. Little did she know, this fake relationship would become very real in ways she never expected. As she sat at the table, she glanced at her watch, noticing that she was a few minutes early. Her heart raced with anxiety. The last thing she wanted was to be late or look unprepared. The man she was meeting, who she assumed was just another wealthy businessman, was sitting at the far end of the cafe, his dark suit and sharp features catching her attention immediately. He looked every bit the part of a millionaire. Maria stood up, smoothing out her skirt, and walked toward the table where he sat. "Hi. You must be Kevin," she said, smiling nervously. The man looked up, his eyes narrowing slightly before a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Yes, I'm Kevin," he replied, his voice calm and confident. He gestured for her to sit down, and Maria took a seat, trying to mask her unease. She didn't expect this encounter to be anything more than a quick and awkward dinner, but something about Kevin's presence made her feel oddly at ease. "I know this is a bit awkward, but Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so I'll talk a lot," she said, trying to fill the silence. Kevin raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "Blind dates are always a bit strange, aren't they?" he replied, his tone warm but controlled. "I suppose so," Maria said, her voice softening. They both laughed, the conversation starting to flow more easily than she expected. They talked about everything: life, work, their hopes and dreams. Kevin mentioned he worked in tech, though he was a bit vague about the details, and Maria shared her passion for art, revealing that she worked as a waitress to support herself. As the night went on, Maria realized how comfortable she was with Kevin. He wasn't like the other men she'd met in her life, so focused on their wealth or status. He seemed genuine, interested in her as a person, not just the image she presented. Maria wasn't sure if it was because of the fake dating or because she genuinely enjoyed his company, but she felt a spark of connection. That was when she got the text. "Hey Maria, I'm here. Table 7, it read. She froze, looking up at Kevin, her face turning beet red as realization hit her. She had sat down at the wrong table. She quickly stood up, apologizing. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else. This is all so embarrassing." Kevin smiled at her, his eyes twinkling with something she couldn't quite place. "It's okay. It happens. You're not the first one to make that mistake," he said, standing up and walking toward the door with her. "If you still want to have dinner, I'm not going anywhere." Maria's heart skipped a beat. Could this be real? She had thought this was all just a charade. But the way he spoke, the warmth in his eyes, it felt like something much more than a pretend date. What if this was the start of something real? The next few days were a whirlwind for Maria. After the awkward mix-up at the cafe, Kevin had insisted they meet again. He sent her a message the following day, asking if she would like to grab coffee. Maria, still feeling a little embarrassed, hesitated for a moment before replying. She didn't know if it was just her nerves or something more, but there was something about Kevin she couldn't ignore. He was different from anyone she'd ever met. The coffee shop they met at was small, cozy, and quiet, tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Kevin was already sitting at a corner table when she arrived, looking casual in a gray sweater and jeans, a stark contrast to the polished businessman look she had seen before. She approached the table, and he stood up, giving her a warm smile. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, gesturing for her to sit. Maria smiled, still a little shy, but more at ease than she had been during their first meeting. "I'm glad you asked me to meet again," she replied, sitting down. They ordered their drinks, and the conversation flowed easily. They talked about their lives, their dreams, and the little things that made them who they were. Maria found herself opening up to him in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. Kevin seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say, and for the first time in a while, she didn't feel like she had to pretend to be someone she wasn't. As the conversation continued, Maria couldn't help but notice how different Kevin was from the men she was used to. He wasn't focused on impressing her with his wealth or status. Instead, he listened, genuinely curious about her life, her struggles, and her passions. It made her feel seen, in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Kevin shared more about his work in tech, though he still kept things vague. He told her about the startups he was involved with, but he didn't go into too much detail. Maria didn't mind. She was more interested in the person he was, not the work he did. As the afternoon wore on, they both started to feel more comfortable. Maria felt herself growing more drawn to Kevin, but at the same time, she was hesitant. She reminded herself that this was all just a temporary arrangement, a fake relationship to get out of an arranged marriage. She had promised herself that she wouldn't let her emotions get involved. But something about Kevin made it hard to keep that promise. Just as they were about to wrap up their coffee date, Kevin glanced at his watch. "I have to get going," he said, standing up. Maria stood as well, feeling a little disappointed that their time together was over so soon. "Yeah, me too. I have to work." "Later," she replied. They walked to the door together, and as they reached the exit, Kevin turned to her. "I know this might sound forward, but would you like to go to a charity event with me next week?" he asked. Maria blinked, surprised by the invitation. "A charity event?" she repeated. Kevin smiled. "Yeah, it's for a good cause. I'd really like to have you there." Maria hesitated, unsure if she should accept. But then she looked into his eyes and saw something sincere, something she hadn't expected. "Okay, I'll go," she said, smiling. Kevin's smile grew wider. "Great. I'll send you the details." As they said their goodbyes, Maria walked back to her apartment, her mind racing. She hadn't expected to feel this way about someone she was supposed to be pretending with. But with Kevin, it felt real. The next week flew by, and before she knew it, the charity event was upon her. Maria spent hours picking out the perfect dress, wanting to look her best. She didn't know why, but she felt like this event with Kevin was more important than she had originally thought. When she arrived at the venue, a luxurious hotel ballroom, she felt a little out of place. The glitz and glamour of it all were overwhelming. But as soon as Kevin spotted her across the room, he made his way toward her with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. He was dressed in a sharp suit, looking every bit the part of the successful millionaire. He took her hand, leading her into the crowd. "You look amazing," he said, his voice warm. Maria blushed, feeling a little nervous. "Thank you," she replied softly. The night was a blur of conversations, laughter, and mingling with strangers. But through it all, Kevin kept by her side. As the evening wore on, they found a quiet corner, away from the crowd, and talked more intimately. Maria found herself growing more and more comfortable in his presence, and before she knew it, the event was coming to an end. As they said their goodbyes, Kevin leaned in slightly, his voice low. "I'm really glad you came tonight," he said. Maria smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Me too," she replied. "Thank you for inviting me." Kevin paused for a moment, looking at her with an intensity that took her by surprise. "Maria, I want to be honest with you," he said. This isn't just a fake relationship for me. I've enjoyed spending time with you, and I think you're incredible." Maria's heart raced as she looked at him, unsure of what to say. She had told herself to keep her emotions in check, but now she wasn't so sure she could. Before she could respond, Kevin took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "Let's see where this goes, okay?" he said, his smile soft and genuine. Maria nodded, her emotions swirling in a mix of excitement and uncertainty. As they walked out into the night together, she couldn't help but feel like this was the beginning of something real. Maria could hardly believe what Kevin had said. For a moment, she stood there, her mind racing with emotions she couldn't quite place. Was he really serious about her? Was this more than just a pretend relationship for him too? She had promised herself not to get too attached, to keep things simple, but now, standing in front of him, she wasn't sure anymore. As they walked out of the charity event into the cool night air, Kevin's hand brushed against hers, sending a small shiver through her body. "I really enjoyed tonight," Kevin said, breaking the silence, his voice soft but sincere. Maria turned to look at him, her heart beating faster. Me too, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. It was nice to be here, with you. Kevin smiled, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her feel like they were the only two people in the world. I'm glad, he said. I've been thinking a lot about us, Maria. I know this started off as something fake, but I don't want it to be just that. I want to see where this can go. Maria's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt stuck. What was she supposed to say? She had never expected things to get so complicated. She had thought she could just play along, escape her arranged marriage, and move on, but now it felt like there was something real between them. Kevin took a step closer to her, his gaze never leaving her face. I know this might be moving fast, but I feel something with you, Maria. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Maria felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she had felt the same way, but she was scared. She was scared of the way this could change everything, scared of letting her guard down. Kevin, she began, but he placed a finger gently on her lips, silencing her. No need to say anything right now, he whispered. Just know that I care about you, more than I expected. Maria's heart fluttered, and for a brief moment, she forgot about everything else. The fake relationship, the arranged marriage, the life she had been trying to escape. All that mattered was the man standing in front of her, the one who was making her question everything she thought she knew about love. As they stood there, the cold night air swirling around them, Kevin reached out and took her hand in his. Let's take this one step at a time, he said, his voice reassuring. No pressure. We'll figure it out together. Maria nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things were starting to fall into place. The following weeks were a blur. Maria and Kevin spent more time together, and with each passing day, their connection grew stronger. They went on more dates, shared more conversations, and laughed together more than she ever thought possible. Kevin was everything she hadn't expected, a successful, powerful man with a heart full of kindness. He wasn't just interested in her looks or her background. He was interested in who she was as a person. It was a breath of fresh air, something Maria had never experienced before. Still, in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the fear that this was all too good to be true. Was she really falling for him? Or was she just trying to escape her old life? She spent countless nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was making a mistake. But then, one evening, as they were walking through a park, Kevin stopped and turned to her. Maria, he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. I know this might sound crazy, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. Maria's heart skipped a beat. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. Kevin, she didn't know how to respond. But Kevin smiled, taking her hands in his. I know. It's soon. But I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I want you to be with me, for real. Not just for pretend anymore. Will you be with me, Maria? Maria felt a rush of emotions flood over her. She had known it all along, deep down, but now hearing it from him made it feel so real. She looked at him, her heart racing. Yes, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, I want to be with you. Kevin's eyes lit up, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. For the first time since they met, Maria felt truly happy, like she had found a place where she truly belonged. She had spent so long running from her past, from the life she thought she had to live, but now, with Kevin, she realized that maybe her future was just beginning. Maria couldn't believe how quickly things had changed. What started as a simple arrangement, a way to escape an unwanted future, had transformed into something real, something meaningful. As days passed, she found herself more and more drawn to Kevin, not just because of his wealth or status, but because of who he was as a person. He was kind, thoughtful, and genuinely cared about her. For someone who had spent most of her life fending for herself, the feeling of being cared for was both new and overwhelming. But despite the warmth she felt for him, Maria couldn't shake the nagging voice in her head that questioned if this was all just a phase, a fleeting moment in her life that would eventually fade away. She had been hurt before, had been let down by people who promised her the world but never delivered. Could she really trust that Kevin wasn't like the others? But every time she doubted, every time the fear crept in, she found herself looking at him, and the doubts slowly melted away. One evening, after a dinner date, as they stood outside in the cool night air, Kevin turned to her, his expression serious. Maria, I've been thinking, he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. I know we've only been together for a short time, but I feel like I've known you forever. I want this to be real, to be something lasting. I want you to be a part of my life, for real, not just as some pretend girlfriend. Maria's heart skipped a beat as she looked into his eyes, searching for any hint of doubt, any sign that this was just another game. But all she saw was sincerity. Kevin, she began, but her words trailed off. She had no idea what to say. She had never been this open with someone before, and the vulnerability was both terrifying and exhilarating. Kevin stepped closer, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. Maria, I'm not asking you to decide anything right now. I just want you to know that I'm serious about us. I want you, all of you, not just the part you think I'm interested in. I want the real you, the person behind the facade. His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing the fears that had been building up inside her. Maria felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, she could let go of the fear and trust that this was real. I want that too, Kevin, she finally said, her voice quiet but full of meaning. I want to give this a chance, to see where it can go. Kevin smiled, his eyes lighting up with a mixture of relief and joy. I'm glad to hear that, Maria, he said, his voice softening. I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. As they stood there, wrapped in the quiet of the night, Maria felt like she had found something she had been searching for her entire life, someone who saw her for who she truly was, not for what others expected her to be. The following weeks were filled with small moments that only deepened their connection. Kevin introduced her to his world, his work, his friends, his lifestyle, but he never once made her feel out of place. He respected her boundaries, her dreams, and, most importantly, her past. Maria shared her hopes of one day opening an art studio, a dream she had kept hidden for so long, too afraid of failure to pursue it. Kevin listened, truly listened, and even offered to help her make that dream a reality. You don't have to do it alone, Maria, he said one evening as they sat together in his penthouse. I believe in you, and I know you can do it. If you need help, I'm here. Those words were like a lifeline to Maria. She had always been independent, always thought she had to do everything by herself. But with Kevin, she felt like it was okay to ask for help, to lean on someone. And that realization terrified her as much as it freed her. But it was also the most beautiful thing she had ever felt. As the days turned into weeks, Maria and Kevin's relationship blossomed. They laughed, they talked, and they shared parts of themselves they had never shown anyone before. Kevin was no longer just the man who had helped her escape an arranged marriage. He had become her partner, her confidant, and the person she had come to rely on. One evening, as they sat in a park, watching the sunset, Kevin turned to her with a smile that sent a thrill through her heart. Maria, I want to take things to the next level. I don't want to just pretend anymore. I want you to be mine. Officially, no more pretending, no more games. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Maria's heart raced as she looked at him, her mind spinning. She had been afraid of this moment, of the commitment it entailed, but now, as she looked into his eyes, she realized that this was what she had been waiting for. Yes, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I want that too, Kevin. I'm ready. And with that, they sealed their commitment to each other, no longer bound by pretense, but by something real, something that neither of them had expected to find. As they embraced, Maria knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that was filled with love, trust, and the promise of a future together. It had been a few weeks since Maria had said yes to Kevin's proposal to make their relationship real, and in that time, things had only gotten deeper, more meaningful, and more complicated. Maria had never imagined that a simple arrangement to escape an arranged marriage would lead her to someone she could genuinely see a future with. She had always kept her guard up, telling herself that relationships, especially one that started with such a flimsy foundation, weren't meant to last. But with Kevin, she felt like she was in uncharted territory. The way he treated her, the way he listened and cared about her thoughts and feelings, was unlike anything she had experienced before. Every day felt like a new chapter in a story she never expected to be a part of. She had begun to imagine a future with him, a future that didn't involve her running away from a life she never wanted but instead, building a new one with him by her side. Still, there was a part of her that hesitated. The reality of how quickly things were moving had begun to sink in. Was she really ready for this? Was she ready to trust someone enough to let go of all the fears she had carried for so long? She had never felt truly loved, never felt like she could rely on anyone but herself. The idea of letting someone else into her life completely was daunting. But every time she doubted herself, Kevin was there, showing her, not just telling her, that she was worth it, that their relationship was worth it. One evening, they were sitting together on the balcony of Kevin's penthouse, the city lights twinkling below them like a million stars scattered across the sky. Kevin had been unusually quiet, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something softer, more contemplative. Maria glanced at him, her heart skipping a beat. "Kevin, what's on your mind?" she asked, her voice gentle. He looked at her, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I was just thinking about how much has changed since we met," he said softly. "I never expected to meet someone like you, Maria. I never expected to feel like this, to care this much about someone." Maria's heart swelled at his words. She had always been afraid of getting too close to anyone, of letting someone in and getting hurt. But with Kevin, it felt different. It felt safe. "I feel the same way," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never imagined that this," she gestured between them, "could be real. I never imagined that I could actually have something like this." Kevin reached out, taking her hand in his. "I know we've been through a lot, and I know you've been through a lot, but I want you to know that I'm here. I'm here for you, no matter what," he said, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. Maria looked at him, her heart filled with a warmth she hadn't known in a long time. "I believe you, Kevin. I do," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. As they sat there, the cool night air surrounding them, Maria realized something that she hadn't fully accepted before. She had been so afraid to let go of her past, to trust someone. But in that moment, she understood that trusting Kevin didn't mean giving up who she was or the lessons she had learned. It meant opening herself up to a new chapter, one that she never thought she would have. And as much as it scared her, she knew that she was ready. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. Maria and Kevin spent more time together, growing closer and more connected. They started planning for the future, something that felt both thrilling and terrifying to Maria. Kevin was always supportive of her dreams, especially her desire to open her own art studio. He even helped her connect with people in the art world, giving her the tools and resources she needed to take the first steps. Maria couldn't believe how much Kevin had done for her. He was always there, offering advice, encouragement, and his unwavering support. She had never had anyone do that for her before, and it made her heart swell with gratitude. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, Maria was faced with a challenge she wasn't prepared for. Her family, particularly her parents, were pressuring her to come back home and marry the man they had chosen for her. They didn't understand why she was spending so much time with Kevin, and they certainly didn't approve of the way their relationship had started. Maria knew this was coming, but she had hoped she could delay it. Now, it was unavoidable. One evening, she received a call from her mother, her voice filled with concern. "Maria, your father and I are very worried about you," her mother said. "You need to come home. The man we've chosen for you is waiting. This whole fake relationship with that millionaire is just a distraction." Maria felt her stomach drop as her mother's words echoed in her mind. She knew this conversation was inevitable, but hearing it made it all too real. She glanced at Kevin, who was sitting across the room, looking at her with concern. "I have to go, Kevin," she said softly, her voice heavy with emotion. "My family wants me to come home. They want me to marry the man they chose for me. I don't know what to do." Kevin stood up and walked over to her, taking her hands in his. "Maria, I know this is difficult, but you have to make a choice," he said, his voice steady. "You have to decide what's best for you. And I'll support you, no matter what." Maria felt a tear slip down her cheek as she looked at him, her heart torn between her family's expectations and the love she had found with Kevin. She knew what she had to do, but it didn't make the decision any easier. Maria couldn't believe how much was at stake. The phone call with her mother had left her feeling torn, a deep sense of conflict welling up inside her. She was caught between the life her family expected her to lead and the life she was starting to build with Kevin. For so long, she had done everything her parents asked of her, obeying their wishes, following their rules. But now, with Kevin by her side, she had tasted freedom. She had tasted the kind of love and respect she never imagined could exist, and the thought of losing that made her heart ache. She knew what her parents wanted, a marriage with a man they had chosen, someone who could secure her future in their eyes. But what about her future? What about the dreams she had? Her art studio, the life she could create with Kevin. She had always put others' needs first, but now she was faced with a choice that was all about her. The days after that phone call felt like a blur. Maria couldn't sleep, her mind racing with thoughts of her family and Kevin, the expectations on both sides pressing down on her. She tried to talk to Kevin, to explain everything she was feeling, but every time she started, the words stuck in her throat. She didn't want to hurt him, didn't want him to feel like she was choosing between him and her family. But it was becoming clearer, with each passing day, that this was exactly what she had to do. Kevin had always been there for her, supportive and kind, never pushing her to make a decision. But now, seeing the concern in his eyes, she knew he understood the weight of the situation. They sat together one evening in the living room of his penthouse, the city lights twinkling outside the large windows. Maria felt a tight knot in her stomach as she looked at Kevin, his face filled with concern. "Kevin, I don't know what to do," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My family wants me to come home. They want me to marry the man they've chosen. I feel like I'm being torn apart." Kevin reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. "Maria, I know how hard this must be for you," he said softly. "But you don't have to do anything you don't want to. You've built something real here, with me. And I believe in you, in us." Maria's heart swelled with emotion as she looked at him. "But my family, they won't understand. They think I'm making a mistake, that I'm throwing everything away for something that's not real." Kevin shook his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "What we have, Maria, is as real as it gets. And if they can't see that, then maybe it's time for you to stand up for yourself, to choose what's best for you." His words hit her like a wave, washing over her with a clarity she hadn't expected. Kevin wasn't just giving her permission to follow her heart. He was encouraging her to take control of her life, to stop letting others dictate her happiness. Maria knew this was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment she had to make the hard choice. She had spent so many years trying to live up to her family's expectations, trying to please everyone around her, but it had never made her truly happy. And now, with Kevin, she saw a path forward that was filled with possibility. It wasn't about rejecting her family. It was about finally choosing her own happiness. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "You're right," she said, her voice stronger now. "I can't keep living for everyone else. I need to live for me, and I want to live that life with you." Kevin smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "I'm with you, Maria, every step of the way. Whatever you choose, I'll be here." The weight that had been pressing on her chest seemed to lift, and for the first time in days, Maria felt like she could breathe again. She had made her decision, and it was one that felt right. The next morning, Maria called her parents. Her hands shook as she dialed their number, but she knew she had to do this. She had to stand up for herself. When her mother answered, Maria took a deep breath and spoke with a confidence she hadn't known she possessed. "Mom, I need to tell you something. I'm not coming home. I'm staying here, with Kevin. I've made my choice." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for her mother's response. "Maria, you don't know what you're saying," her mother finally replied, her voice cold and distant. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for. You're making a mistake." Maria's heart sank, but she didn't let her mother's words sway her. "I know it's hard for you to understand, but this is what's best for me. I'm happy, Mom. I'm finally living the life I want. I hope one day you can see that." There was no response, just the sound of her mother's sigh before the line went dead. Maria stood there, staring at the phone, her emotions a whirlwind inside her. It wasn't easy, but it was done. She had made her choice, and now she could move forward with the man she loved, the man who made her feel like she was enough, just as she was. Later that day, Kevin took her out for a walk in the park. The sun was shining, the air crisp and fresh. As they walked hand in hand, Maria felt a sense of peace settle over her. For the first time in a long time, she was living her truth. And with Kevin by her side, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Maria felt like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders after making the decision to follow her heart. She knew that cutting ties with her family's expectations wouldn't be easy, but with Kevin by her side, she felt stronger than ever. It was a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty and excitement, but also with the possibility of something real, something lasting. The days following her conversation with her mother were quiet. Maria spent her time focusing on her art, finding inspiration in the small moments of her daily life. Kevin continued to be her rock, encouraging her every step of the way. He never pushed her to move faster than she was ready for, and his unwavering support gave her the strength she needed to keep moving forward. One afternoon, as Maria worked in her small apartment, she received a call from an unexpected source, her father. She had been bracing for this moment, knowing that her family would eventually reach out, but she hadn't expected it to come from him. The conversation started with the usual tension. Her father's voice was cold, distant, filled with disappointment. "Maria, you've made your decision, but I need to tell you that your mother is devastated. We've tried to raise you with respect for tradition, and now you're throwing it all away." Maria felt her heart sink, but she refused to back down. "I understand that this is difficult for you, but I have to live my own life," she said, her voice steady. "I'm happy here, and I need you to understand that I'm not making this decision lightly." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. She could hear the frustration in her father's sigh. "I can't say I agree with you, but you're an adult now. You'll have to live with the consequences of your choices." Maria's throat tightened, but she took a deep breath. "I will, Dad. I'm ready to face whatever comes. This is my life, and I need to take control of it." Her father's response was quiet, almost resigned. "I can't promise that we'll ever see eye to eye on this, but I hope one day you'll realize what you've given up." Maria hung up the phone, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She had made her choice, and although it wasn't easy, she knew it was the right one. As the weeks went by, Maria and Kevin grew closer, their relationship evolving from one of convenience to something deeper. They spent weekends together, exploring the city, enjoying each other's company, and creating new memories. For the first time in a long time, Maria felt like she was truly living. Kevin had a way of making everything feel possible, of showing her that she didn't have to settle for the life that had been planned for her. He believed in her dreams, in the art she had put aside for so many years. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Kevin's penthouse, watching the sunset, Kevin turned to her with a look of determination in his eyes. "Maria, I've been thinking," he began, his voice serious. "I know we've talked about your art before, but I want you to know that I'm ready to do whatever it takes to help you make that dream a reality." Maria looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" she asked. Kevin smiled, his eyes softening. "I've seen the way you talk about your art, the way it lights you up. I don't want you to keep putting it on the back burner. You're incredible, Maria, and I want to help you open that studio, whatever it takes." Maria's heart swelled with emotion. She had always kept her dreams close, afraid to pursue them in fear of failing, but Kevin's words gave her the courage to believe in herself. "Kevin, you don't have to do that," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "But I want you to," he replied firmly. "I believe in you, and I want to see you succeed." In that moment, Maria realized that she was no longer just pretending to live. She was finally living her life, chasing her dreams, and doing it with someone who supported her every step of the way. Kevin wasn't just a man who had helped her escape her arranged marriage. He was the man who had shown her that she was worthy of the life she had always dreamed of. The decision to follow her heart had been difficult, but it had led her to this moment, to a future filled with love, possibility, and the freedom to be herself. Maria smiled at Kevin, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Kevin reached out, gently taking her hand. "You don't have to do anything without me, Maria," he said softly. "We're in this together." As they sat there, hand in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Maria knew that her life had just begun. She had found the courage to stand up for herself, to choose her own happiness, and in doing so, she had found love, support, and the strength to build the future she had always dreamed of. Maria woke up the next morning with a sense of calm she hadn't felt in a long time. The night before, after their conversation on the balcony, she had spent hours reflecting on the incredible support Kevin had shown her. He wasn't just offering to help her with her dreams. He was fully invested in her happiness, in her future. And for the first time, Maria felt like she was allowed to dream without fear of failure. She had always put others first, had always lived in the shadow of expectations. Her family's expectations, her society's rules. But now, with Kevin's unwavering belief in her, she realized that she had the power to shape her own future. As she made her morning coffee, she thought about her art studio once again. She had always wanted to open one, a place where she could share her passion for art and inspire others. But fear had always held her back, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of failing. But Kevin's words echoed in her mind, reminding her that she didn't have to face this journey alone. She could do it, and he would be there every step of the way. Maria felt a surge of confidence and excitement. It was time to make her dreams a reality. Over the next few weeks, Maria and Kevin worked together to make the art studio a reality. Kevin helped her get in touch with the right people, and even though he was incredibly busy with his own work, he always found time to offer support and advice. It wasn't just about the money or the resources. Kevin's belief in her gave her the courage to push through every obstacle that came their way. One afternoon, as they were walking through the city, Maria couldn't help but smile as she looked at the building they had secured for the studio. It wasn't much yet, but with a little bit of work, it could become the space she had always dreamed of. She turned to Kevin, her heart full of gratitude. "I can't believe this is really happening," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Kevin smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "I told you it would happen, Maria. You just had to believe in yourself." Maria looked at him, her heart swelling with love. "I couldn't have done it without you, Kevin," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me that I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought." Kevin gently squeezed her hand, his gaze never leaving hers. "You've always been capable, Maria. You just needed someone to remind you of that." As the weeks turned into months, the studio began to take shape. Maria poured her heart into every corner, making sure it was a space that felt welcoming and inspiring. She worked tirelessly, but with Kevin by her side, the work didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a shared mission, something they were both passionate about. The grand opening of the studio was a day Maria would never forget. She stood in front of the doors, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. There were people from the art community, friends, and even some of Kevin's business associates. But for Maria, the most important person there was Kevin. He stood beside her, his support unwavering, as they cut the ribbon together. "This is just the beginning, Maria," Kevin said, his voice filled with pride. Maria smiled, her heart full. "I know, and I'm ready for it," she replied. The opening was a success, but more than that, it marked a turning point in Maria's life. It wasn't just about the art studio. It was about her journey of self-discovery, of finding the courage to step into her own power. It was about learning to trust herself, to believe that she was worthy of love and success. And as she looked around the room at the people who had come to celebrate with her, she realized that everything she had gone through, the struggles, the doubts, the pain, had led her to this moment. She had found something more valuable than a successful business or a perfect relationship. She had found herself. In the weeks that followed, Maria and Kevin continued to build their life together. They traveled, explored new experiences, and grew even closer as a couple. The challenges that had once seemed insurmountable now felt like distant memories, replaced by the joy of living life on their own terms. One night, as they sat on the balcony of their apartment, Maria leaned her head on Kevin's shoulder. "Do you ever think about how much has changed?" she asked softly. Kevin looked down at her, his smile gentle. "All the time," he said, "but I wouldn't change a thing." Maria smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over her. She had made the right choice. She had chosen herself. And in doing so, she had found a love that was real, a future that was hers to create, and the freedom to be the person she was always meant to be. And as the city lights flickered below them, Maria knew that this was just the beginning of a new, beautiful chapter in her life. As the months passed, Maria found herself living a life she had never imagined for herself. The art studio had become a thriving success, and each day brought new opportunities for growth. Maria had always believed that she wasn't capable of achieving her dreams, but with Kevin by her side, she had found the courage to push through every obstacle. The support he had shown her was more than she ever thought she deserved. He wasn't just her partner in business. He had become her partner in life. someone who understood her dreams, her fears, and everything in between. Their connection had deepened in ways Maria couldn't fully explain. She no longer saw herself as the girl who had been running away from her past. Instead, she saw herself as someone who had finally embraced her future. And it was a future she shared with Kevin, the man who had believed in her when she had trouble believing in herself. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their living room, Kevin turned to Maria with a thoughtful look in his eyes. "Maria," he began, his voice gentle, "I've been thinking about how far we've come. It's been a journey, hasn't it?" Maria smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "It really has," she said softly. "I never imagined I'd be here, doing what I love, with you by my side." Kevin reached for her hand, his grip tender but firm. "You deserve all of this, Maria. You've worked so hard, and you've fought for what you wanted. I'm proud of you." Maria's heart swelled with emotion. "Thank you, Kevin. I couldn't have done it without you. You've always been there for me, even when I didn't know how to ask for help." Kevin smiled, his eyes filled with love. "That's what partners do," he said. "We lift each other up." As they sat together in that peaceful moment, Maria realized that she had everything she needed. She had love, she had her passion, and she had someone who believed in her. But more than that, she had found herself. The person she had always been underneath all the fears and doubts. The person who was capable of creating the life she had always dreamed of. Kevin squeezed her hand, breaking her from her thoughts. "I have something for you," he said, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Maria raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" Kevin stood up and walked over to the shelf, where he had placed a small box. He returned to the couch and handed it to her. "Open it," he said. Maria took the box in her hands, her curiosity piqued. As she opened it, she gasped in surprise. Inside the box was a delicate necklace with a pendant shaped like an artist's palette. "Kevin, it's beautiful," she whispered, her fingers tracing the smooth surface of the pendant. "I thought it was fitting," Kevin said, his voice filled with warmth. "It represents everything you've worked for, everything you've created." Maria smiled, her heart overflowing with emotion. "I don't know what to say." Kevin gently placed the necklace around her neck. "You don't have to say anything," he said softly. "This is just a small token to remind you of how far you've come." Maria closed her eyes, taking in the moment. It wasn't just the necklace that meant so much to her. It was the love, the encouragement, and the partnership that had brought her to this point. She had found her purpose, her strength, and her happiness. And it was all because she had chosen to take a leap of faith, to trust herself and the person who had become her greatest ally. "I love you, Kevin," Maria said, her voice full of sincerity. Kevin leaned in and kissed her gently on the forehead. "I love you too, Maria. And I always will." As they embraced, Maria knew that she had made the right choice. She had chosen love, she had chosen herself, and she had chosen the future that awaited her. And with Kevin by her side, there was nothing they couldn't face together. The world was full of possibilities, and together, they would take on whatever came next. The studio, their life, their love, it was all just the beginning of a beautiful, shared journey. Maria had learned that life wasn't about playing by the rules set for her. It was about creating her own path, one that was filled with passion, purpose, and the people who truly mattered. And as she looked at Kevin, she knew that this was just the start of the rest of their lives together.